The cops were halfway up my driveway when my wife, still in pajama pants, lifted her badge with that kind of quiet, deadly authority that makes grown men freeze. One officer stopped mid-stride, the other's hand hovered near his belt, and then there was Janet. Her jaw dropped so wide I thought she'd swallowed her own fake HOA bylaws. That was the exact moment she realized she hadn't just messed with a neighbor. She'd picked a fight with the federal government. 3 years earlier, I thought I'd finally escaped the noise. I'm Brian Teller, mechanical engineer, lover of peace brisket, and building things nobody actually needs. My wife Dana and I bought a little slice of heaven on Cypress Grove Lane. Big yard, no HOA, no nosy rules about mailbox color or grass length. The real estate agent even laughed when I asked if there was an HOA. Not for 20 years, she said. Perfect. But perfection didn't last long, because then came Janet Drybach, self-appointed queen of the neighboring HOA, with her clipboard and floral scarf like suburban royalty. The first day she appeared, she knocked on my door with a welcome packet I never asked for. Inside were laminated lawn rules, a chart of approved mailbox colors, and God help me, a VHS tape titled Cypress Grove Community Orientation, 1998. Dana and I actually dug out an old VCR from a yard sale just to watch it. It looked like a hostage video filmed in a high school media lab. I laughed it off. We both did. But Janet wasn't joking. A few days later, we found a handwritten note on purple gel pen paper stuck to our door. Mailbox not HOA beige violation. Then another about our fire pit. Then one about Dana's unmarked government car being suspicious. My wife laughed so hard she almost spilled her coffee. Let her have her fun, Dana said. It'll blow over. Except it didn't. The notes became letters. The letters turned into fake fines. She slid envelopes under our door, $50 for excessive dandelions, $75 for non-approved bird feeders, $200 for our aggressively non-neutral front door color, which had been green since before we bought the place. Every Saturday morning at 7 a.m., her voice rattled through the answering machine. You're required at the HOA emergency meeting today. Daily fines are accumulating. Legal action pending. At first I shredded the letters and ignored the voicemails, but after a month it got under my skin. I caught her one morning during her power walk, clipboard and hand visor on, lips tight. I explained calmly that our property wasn't in the HOA. Showed her the deed, the parcel map, the county record, everything. She didn't even glance at it. She just snapped a picture of my license plate and muttered something about non-compliant vehicle standards. That was when the irritation turned into something heavier. I started dreading her footsteps outside. Every morning I'd peek through the blinds just to make sure she wasn't lurking around the yard. Dana kept telling me, "Let it go, babe. She's just bored." But I couldn't. It's one thing to have a difficult neighbor, it's another to be accused, fined, and harassed in your own home. Then came the shed. I'd taken a week off work to build a 12 by 10 storage shed out back, permits, approved plans, printed everything up to code. Dana was already planning how to organize her tools. It was supposed to be a relaxing project, my therapy. Halfway through framing, I heard her voice over the hammering, shrill, indignant, getting closer. Janet was at the gate, face the color of a bruised plum binder of HOA bylaws clutched to her chest. "This is an unauthorized construction," she shouted. "You're in violation of section." I didn't even let her finish. I told her again we weren't in the HOA. She said, "We'll see about that," and stormed off. I thought she'd call her cousin who did online law school. Turns out she called the police. Tuesday morning, 2 squad cars rolled up the street. I could see her marching beside them like she was leading a SWAT raid, frappuccino in one hand, binder in the other. The neighbors came out pretending to water their lawns. I wiped the sawdust off my jeans, ready to show the officers my building permits. But before I could say a word, the front door opened behind me. Dana stepped out, pajama pants, old FBI Academy t-shirt, messy hair that screamed, "I've seen worse." She took one look at the scene, 2 police cars, a trembling Karen with a binder, and sighed the kind of sigh that says, "I don't have time for this." Then she reached for her wallet. When that badge caught the sunlight, everything stopped. "Special Agent Dana Teller, Department of Homeland Security," she said, voice calm, cold, precise. "You're trespassing on federal property. This shed is a secure storage facility. You're interfering with a classified operation." Technically, she wasn't lying. My garage was such a disaster it could qualify as a national security threat. But the delivery, my God, the delivery was pure cinematic perfection. The younger cop looked at his partner. We might need to double-check jurisdiction here." The older one nodded, already backing toward the patrol car. "We're going to make some calls," he said. "Which is police talk for? We're out." Janet's face went from red to white to green. "Sovereign neighborhood rights," she squeaked. Dana ignored her, pulled a crisp document from a folder and handed it over. "This," she said, "is a cease and desist letter from our legal department. Harassing a federal employee and impersonating regulatory authority carries some interesting liabilities." It was real. Her agency's lawyers had drafted it after Dana vented about Janet at work. Apparently nothing brightens a government attorney's day like taking down an overreaching HOA president. Janet scanned the letter, her hands trembling. You could almost hear the circuits shorting out in her brain as she read words like criminal liability and federal statute violation. When she looked up, the swagger was gone. She stammered something about misunderstanding, then turned and fled. That night I stood in the kitchen, still stunned. The adrenaline had worn off, replaced by something emptier. "You think she's really done?" I asked Dana. She shrugged. "People like that never quit. But this time we're ready." For days I felt hollow. I'd spent months being polite, rational, civil. None of it mattered. Every rule, every boundary she trampled. I started to wonder if maybe I was the problem. Maybe we should have just painted the mailbox beige, blended in, kept our heads down. That's what people do in HOA neighborhoods, right? They comply. But then I'd see her notes, her fake fines, and remember, compliance is what she wanted. Control. And I was done giving it. A week later, the neighborhood erupted. Word spread that the HOA had held an emergency board meeting. Janet's phone was blowing up. The treasurer, Tom, a nice guy who'd always rolled his eyes at her, told us everything. The board's real lawyer had ripped her apart. Filing false reports, harassment, impersonating an official, every word he said dug her hole deeper. When the vote came, it wasn't even close. Unanimous suspension. But that wasn't the end. Janet was forced to write official apology letters to us, to the police, to every homeowner she'd ever fined under fake rules. The HOA's insurance company made her pay the $5,000 deductible for the legal mess she'd caused. Then came the misdemeanor charge and the $800 fine for filing a false police report. When Tom told me I didn't celebrate, I just felt quiet. It's strange how justice doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like silence after too much noise. A month later, the HOA hosted its annual summer barbecue. Dana was invited to give a community safety talk. She titled her presentation, "Know Your Boundaries, HOA versus Federal Sovereignty." She handed out pocket-sized constitutions and bookmarks with property law excerpts. It was equal parts educational and legendary. I watched from the back as Janet sat stiff in her folding chair near the potato salad, eyes down, face gray. The board made her stand and read her public apology. Her voice was barely louder than the hum of the lemonade cooler. When she finished, there was no applause, just the sound of a few chairs creaking. And then the final humiliation, the board formally stripped her of her title. Tom said she actually cried when they took her little wooden gavel away. After that, Cypress Grove Lane became what we'd dreamed of in the first place, quiet. No flyers on doors, no early morning voicemails, no self-appointed enforcer pacing the sidewalks. Just the normal sounds of life, lawnmowers, kids on bikes, a few weekend barbecues. One evening I stood in the yard listening to the crickets, the smell of smoke from my grill drifting through the air. For the first time in a long while, it felt like home again. Dana came out with 2 beers, handed me one, and said, "Told you she'd quit eventually." I smiled. Yeah, guess some people just need to learn the hard way. Because sometimes the only thing stronger than fake authority is someone who actually knows the law.